This is Bernie Madoff, former NASDAQ chairman, celebrated philanthropist, one of the most trusted men on Wall Street. Trusted until he confessed to stealing $68 billion in the largest financial fraud in history. Not through some sophisticated scheme, but a fraud so simple it shouldn't have survived a single audit. So how did no one notice for decades? The answer begins with how that trust was built. Bernie Madoff's reputation was built on a foundation of authority and exclusivity that few in finance could match. As chairman of NASDAQ in the 1990s, he moved through Wall Street's highest circles, shaping electronic trading standards and commanding respect from regulators and rivals alike. His name graced the boards of major charities and cultural institutions. Between 1995 and 2005, he gave millions to Columbia University, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and leading hospitals, often appearing in donor reports alongside the city's most trusted philanthropists. His foundation's board included prominent figures from New York's nonprofit world, further cementing his place among the financial elite. Gaining access to Madoff's investment advisory business was not a matter of filling out a form. Prospective clients needed a personal referral from an existing investor, followed by an interview, and a minimum commitment of $1 million. Most were told there was a long waiting list and that only a select few would ever be admitted. Marketing materials emphasized phrases like "by invitation only" and "exclusive access," while stories circulated about investors turned away despite their wealth or credentials. Even established hedge funds and university endowments lined up for a chance to participate, convinced that scarcity itself was proof of value. This carefully constructed aura of trust and rarity disarmed skepticism. Public accolades, board memberships, and the visible flow of charitable gifts created a feedback loop. The more prestigious the association, the safer investors felt. Few stopped to question the details. The social signals were overwhelming, and for decades, they worked exactly as intended. Behind the velvet rope and the air of exclusivity, the real work of deception unfolded inside Madoff's offices. There, an internal ledger, known to only a handful of trusted staff, became the engine of a fraud that would eventually touch nearly every continent. No trades were executed on behalf of advisory clients. Instead, incoming deposits were quietly recorded as both new principal and, astonishingly, as investment gains. This double entry trick inflated account balances on paper, even as the actual cash remained unchanged. When a client requested a withdrawal, the money came not from market profits, but from the latest wave of deposits. Each redemption matched against a synthetic balance that existed only in the firm's confidential spreadsheet. The illusion was maintained through a steady stream of forged paperwork. Clients received monthly statements showing detailed trade confirmations, complete with fake CUSIP numbers and transaction dates. These documents bore the logos of major clearing firms and appeared indistinguishable from authentic brokerage records. But a forensic review conducted after the collapse revealed that the supposed trades never appeared in any clearinghouse logs. In some cases, the same wire transfer was counted twice, once as a deposit, once as a return, creating a mismatch of $4 billion in the books by 2006. The deception ran on routine. Each month, the synthetic trade engine generated a new batch of phantom gains, always positive, always steady, regardless of what the markets actually did. The only real numbers were the inflows and outflows. The rest was pure invention, maintained by a handful of insiders and a mountain of forged statements, all designed to keep the machine running as long as new money kept coming in. On paper, the numbers were staggering. By the time investigators pried open the books, Madoff's ledgers listed nearly $68 billion in client assets, money that existed only as ink and pixels on forged statements. Over 37,000 accounts had been drawn into the web, spanning 136 countries and every imaginable walk of life. The scale defied belief, one account after another, from small family trusts to the endowments of global banks, all showing steady, upward balances that never faltered, even as real markets crashed. Charities that prided themselves on prudent stewardship, like the Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity, saw their entire $15 million endowment vanish overnight, leaving vital programs in limbo. Hedge funds and pension plans, some with compliance teams and risk committees, reported losses in the hundreds of millions. The official statements, month after month, painted a picture of stability and safety. But every dollar was a phantom, conjured by a handful of insiders and propped up by the next deposit. The illusion grew so vast that it became its own reality, sweeping up institutions, foundations, and ordinary families alike, each believing their future was secured, when in truth, it was already gone. Retirement dreams vanished overnight. Lifelong savers, many in their 70s and 80s, opened their final account statements to find nothing left. No nest egg, no backup plan, just a line of numbers reduced to zero. Newspaper obituaries quietly noted the financial ruin of men and women who had trusted Madoff with everything. Some, like a former teacher in New York, were forced to sell family homes and move into subsidized apartments after decades of careful planning. Others, facing medical bills and no income, relied on food banks for the first time in their lives. Charities that once depended on steady support from Madoff's accounts faced abrupt closure. The Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity lost its entire endowment, silencing scholarships and programs for Holocaust education. Cancer patient support groups, community centers, and research funds all reported sudden layoffs and halted services. For many, the loss meant more than a balance sheet. It meant the end of hope for those they served. The emotional toll was devastating. News outlets reported a series of suicides linked directly to the collapse, including retirees, family members, even a philanthropist's son. For survivors, the sense of betrayal ran deeper than any financial wound. The promise of security had been replaced by fear, anger, and a hollow silence where trust used to be. Harry Markopolos spent years assembling mathematical proof that Madoff's returns were impossible. In 1999, he submitted his first detailed analysis to the SEC, showing that the steady, market-beating gains could not be achieved without visible trades or massive market impact. Over the next decade, Markopolos filed multiple reports, hundreds of pages, spreadsheets, and even step-by-step guides for investigators. Each submission pointed to the same conclusion. Madoff's numbers defied logic and basic arithmetic. Yet, time and again, the warnings fell on deaf ears. The SEC Office of Inspector General later found that agency staff lacked the expertise to grasp Markopolos' models. Many were attorneys, not financial engineers, and few understood the statistical red flags. Some examiners even relied on Madoff's own explanations and industry stature as proof of legitimacy. Authority bias, the tendency to trust those with power and reputation, ran deep. Social connections and the illusion of exclusivity clouded judgment, especially when Madoff's client list included former regulators and respected philanthropists. The result was a series of missed opportunities. Each ignored tip, each superficial exam allowed the fraud to grow unchecked. The SEC's own report names investigative gaps, cognitive blind spots, and a culture of deference that let one man's reputation override evidence. By the time the truth finally surfaced, the damage was irreparable. The system designed to protect investors had, in practice, protected the fraud. On December 10, 2008, the illusion finally collapsed. Bernie Madoff gathered his two sons, Mark and Andrew, inside his Manhattan apartment. He told them without pretense that his investment business was one big lie, and that he could no longer keep up with the avalanche of withdrawal requests. The confession was as blunt as it was devastating. A lifetime of trust, reputation, and exclusivity reduced to a single admission of fraud. The sons, stunned and shaken, made a decision that would end their father's empire. They contacted federal authorities that same evening, relaying the details of Madoff's confession to the FBI. At 8:30 the next morning, agents arrived at the firm's offices. Madoff was arrested on charges of securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. The news spread quickly. The man once celebrated as a pillar of Wall Street was now exposed as the architect of the largest Ponzi scheme in history. In June 2009, a federal judge handed down a prison sentence of 150 years, an unmistakable message about the scale of the crime. The scheme was over. But for the thousands left ruined in its wake, the reckoning had only just begun. Irving Picard, the trustee appointed to unwind the wreckage, launched an aggressive legal campaign to recover stolen funds. Through lawsuits against feeder funds and against investors who withdrew more than they put in, the clawback effort has returned about $14 billion, a figure unprecedented for any Ponzi collapse, yet still only a fraction of the $68 billion in phantom balances. Most victims have received less than 20 cents on the dollar. These partial repayments offered some relief, but for many, the losses remain irreparable. At the policy level, the shock of Madoff's fraud forced sweeping changes. The SEC established a dedicated office of the whistleblower, providing financial incentives and protections for those reporting misconduct. New custody rules now require independent third-party oversight of client assets, making it harder for any one person to control both the money and the paperwork. Annual audits must verify every trade and holding with outside custodians. Across the industry, due diligence checklists grew longer and more demanding. These reforms have raised the bar, but the question lingers: can they ever fully restore trust lost to such a betrayal? Today, trust in financial institutions remains fragile. Nearly 37,000 victims, including the Elie Wiesel Foundation, still feel the aftershocks. Regulators missed the warning signs. The simplest of lies hid behind the grandest of facades. The question isn't how Madoff fooled so many, it's why we let him.